Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be joined by Thommy Sandvick today, as Thommy with a H. He's the Vice President of Catalyst Coaching at Referral, and we're going to be diving deep into relationship building, how you can use referral marketing to grow your business, and so much more. Thommy, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and always excited to share the message of how to grow on referrals and help people build a business that feeds their family and feeds their soul. So I'm excited.
Awesome. Who doesn't love chicken soup for the soul?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, referral marketing and relationship building, obviously things that a lot of us are passionate about. Tell us more about your story, how you got involved in that, and your journey along the way.
Like most entrepreneurs, right? I started in corporate America and just was facing layoff and just decided like I'm just going to jump all in and start a business. So I started in network marketing actually, and I always think that's such a good foray into business because it really does begin the journey in many cases of the core skills that you need in order to become successful. And so I did network marketing and evolved that ultimately into an e-commerce business that grew to, from nothing to $500,000 in sales in a year on Amazon. And then ultimately transitioned that business and shut it down because I was constantly terrified that Amazon was going to shut me down anyway. So I was trying to hedge my bets and really create that consistency that I think we choose this path of entrepreneurship, and which is anything but stable and secure. And yet at the same time, we seek that kind of stable and security upon which we can kind of take a breath and go, like, all right, let's go to the next level now. And that's kind of the first, I guess, stage of business a lot of the time. And so I ended up through the course of those years trying many different business models, and really found that I ultimately landed on, losing all of the businesses, huge amounts of debt. And I couldn't figure out what was going wrong in my life. I ended up having to go back to corporate America. Then I got laid off again. And I just said, like, something in my life isn't working. And I realized I had been victim to what I like to call the hocus pocus trap, which is the idea that in order to have more, you have to do more. And so I went down the personal journey of discovering how you can find success by becoming more. And in that process, I landed on this idea of building a business by referral, because I had tried the numbers driven hustle, hustle, hustle approach. I tried Facebook marketing. I tried, obviously having Amazon and having that built-in traffic. I had all these other methods, and I really was looking for that core underlying thing that if I just focused and said, I'm going to master this, that I believed would take me where I want to go. And so I landed on that's how I found the book, The 7 Levels of Communication, and said, okay, I really want to dive into this. And I really had my back against the wall where I knew that I was either going to become successful by mastering these tactics and doing business this way, or I wasn't going to be an entrepreneur. Like, I was literally going to give up and throw in the towel and say, I'm done. And that's kind of where I was. And I think that's a big reason why it worked. It's the whole back against the wall thing, So that's kind of how what led me to, really just finding referrals as a method of building to focus on ultimately.
Awesome. So you stumbled across 7 levels of relationships. How did you stumble across that, and what were the findings from the book? Why was it so special?
I had realized, and this is about 2017, I really started to shift my focus into networking offline, first of all. And the main reason for that was that when you're building online, you have to effectively learn to build a relationship through text, through video. And I just felt like, well, I need to learn how to walk into a room and be able to build a relationship one-on-one before I can really take those skills online. And so I was in a networking group, and I was finding that other people were getting referrals, other people who did the same thing I did, maybe in a slightly different niche. So I was in the coaching spot at that point. So there's a business coach, and then there was me, the life coach, effectively. And he was getting the referrals and I wasn't. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Like, what's the gap? And even when I changed my business actually back to network marketing and doing that. It kind of was the same thing. I still wasn't being brought into these circles. And so I said, like, what's the difference? So I knew that when I looked back in my entire entrepreneur journey, what I discovered was that the people who joined me, bought from me, or referred me were all people who personally knew me. The problem was I only had like 5 to 10 of those people. And that's always the entrepreneur problem, right? You start with the people you know, but then what do you do? So I said, okay, if I understand that the people most likely to buy, refer, or join me are going to be people that I've personally met, then I need to learn the skill of meeting new people and developing that relationship. Like, I want it systemized. I want you to tell me exactly what to do to shorten that learning curve, because I would go to the people who were successful building on relationships. Think network marketing, think coaching for that matter, right? Like the big people in these spaces, they've built relationships, they've built partnerships, they've built joint ventures and affiliate agreements. They've done all of that. That's all relationship building. But if you ask them how to do it, no one can give you a system. They're like, well, I don't know. After 20 years, here I am. I'm the $100,000 ringer, and they're walking across the stage. And it's like, yeah, but I'm broke. I can't duplicate that. I don't have time for 20 years. I want it now, right? I mean, my back is against the wall. And I literally Googled, how do you build a relationship to referrals? And I landed on the book. And what struck me about the book, it's a story. But within the story, there's over 100 strategies. But the main thing I took from the book was that it wasn't telling me to make a list and call people and ask them to refer me. It wasn't telling me to make a list and call people and ask them to buy from me. It was telling me to make a list, call people, and ask them how I can help. So all of the strategies, ask them, how can I help you? All of the strategies in the book are rooted in love, generosity, and appreciation. And so as a coach, having gone through that discovery of, in order to have what you want, you need to become more, I had grown in my capacity to love and in my desire to lead with generosity. I was just struggling to get the reciprocity on that generosity. So I had people around me that freaking loved me. The problem was I was going broke. I was a broke giver, you know? And I think that's so common in the coaching industry. We just want to help people, but we don't want to be incongruent about how we get there. So what stuck out to me from the book was they're not asking me to turn into somebody I'm not. It's a totally congruent way of doing business because you're always appreciating, you're always giving, and through that, you are communicating how you help people. And it's always through that lens. And it's remarkable. So that's really what I took from the book and why I latched onto it and went, oh my God, this is literally the answer to all my problems. And what was even super interesting is I actually already had the book in my Audible library when I found it on Google. I wasn't ready for the message yet when I originally downloaded it. And then I search for it, I come back to it, discover I already had it, read it, and go, oh my God, it's the answer to all my problems, right? So doesn't that speak to being patient for when people are really ready to hear the message that you have or the help that you're able to provide? That timing really is everything, and the transformation people go through and when they really have that problem really is everything. And when they do, you have to be there communicating how you can help effectively.
Yeah. One of my favorite phrases is, when a student is ready, a master will appear. And
absolutely,
it's all about timing. It's
all about timing. And I see it play out over and over and over where people will read the book 3 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago, and then all of a sudden, like, something has clicked and they're like, I'm ready now. It's like, okay, we're here to help. And then we go from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you mentioned kind of the love and generosity that is part of this. How would you define relationship building? What is it all about? And what are the traits of a good relationship?
I always go back to and I really do need to look this up because I can't remember if it's Jim Rohn or Stephen Covey, but the emotional bank account. I think the thing is that you have good relationships are a combination of give and take, right? Of give and then reciprocity. So I'm always looking at everything from the perspective of, have I deposited enough into the emotional bank account that I've earned the right to make an ask at times? So I think one of the biggest mistakes that is made is like make a list and then call these people, and you're effectively asking for a withdrawal, but you're not actually paying attention to the level of relationship. So I think when you're meeting people, we have a relationship scale that we teach where it's like you're on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 is like you've just met them, and maybe even the 1 through 3 kind of zone. It's like, yeah, I really don't want this relationship to go anywhere. I mean, that's the taker or someone that's just rubs you the wrong way, right? You're not going to hang out with them, and then you get to like the 4 to 6 zone or so, where you're like, yeah, I'll hang out and have a beer with them, right? The problem is that's kind of the friend zone in dating, right? When you get stuck in the friend zone. And so that's where a lot of relationships hang out, when, especially in the business world. A lot of times people will be kind of stuck in that 4 to 6 zone. They like you. They may even want to refer you, but they don't know how to do so. And because you're not communicating, because you're not intentional, the referrals don't come. And then you drive the relationship. And this is where most people are thinking client. So client happens at level 7 on that scale, where you're like, okay, they're a client, fantastic. Unfortunately, especially in a numbers driven approach, that's where people view the relationship as ending. And that's one of the mistakes that's made. So instead of that, we have to pursue that beyond and get them into the referral zone, which is 8 to 10. So when you're building a relationship, whether they're a client or not, the goal is referrals. The goal is focusing on the end result of this relationship is a referral. Along the way, level 7, right? They might become a client if they see that you can help them, or if they raise their hand, right? Because everything we do is very attraction based. But the goal of the referral, the goal of the relationship is referral. So what we effectively do is you give and give, and people will kind of naturally say, how can I help you? And then you say referrals, right? Referrals are the answer, not the question. Then when they give you the referral, you appreciate it. And then guess what happens? You get more, right? Once they've given you the referral, you're an 8 on that scale. And then you continue to appreciate and develop that relationship. So you're depositing and communicating and giving and appreciating even the little things sometimes. Maybe someone just does something nice for you. Just taking a moment to write them a handwritten note, appreciating that little thing, can actually take you from a 5 to an 8 or a 5 to a 7, from friend zone to referral zone, because you just simply appreciated something nice that they did for you, even if it's not business related, but just that capability, right? I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to take my friend to the airport, and now we're house sitting for his dog on top of that. I'm saying, thanks for taking care of my cats when I was gone. It's that kind of stuff, but it happens in business as well. And so I think the relationship building process really is about, are you depositing or withdrawing from the emotional bank account, and making sure that you're really solid in that relationship before you make that withdrawal request along the way. And that's kind of how I view the whole system that we have, is all predicated on strategies that help you do that, right? It's not pie in the sky. It's like, I can give you 7 exact steps to writing the perfect handwritten note that will get people contacting you and gets you into referral conversations. I can give you 7 steps to the exact success story that you can send to people so that they understand how it is that you're helping people, like, so that they have the opportunity to refer you, right? So it's things like that. It's very, very systematic in the system.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You mentioned there are over 100 strategies in the book.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, we definitely don't have time to get through 100, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Could you maybe share your top 2 or 3 and what, like, the tactics in each one, for example?
Yeah. So the first one, I always go to handwritten notes, and it's so old school, right? It gets discounted a lot because it's so old school. But what's interesting is the more that we go online and mass, and I mean, even look at mass texting and just everything being so mass, right? That suddenly old school becomes fashionable again. I am excited to get a piece of actual physical mail, right? These days. I mean, I'm less offended by a flyer in my mail than I am by an email that I didn't want, And when I got my real estate license, I went through a lot of that, because there's a lot of cold emailing that's just absurd in that industry. And so the handwritten note, I always go to that because it's so personal and it is so impactful, because they actually get something physical in the mail and then they keep it. That's the cool part, is when they're actually going to keep it. So I'm happy to share the 7 steps to a power note. I'll see if I can remember them all off the top of my head. So the first thing when we're writing notes is using unbranded cards. And I want to actually take a second and put this into context for coaches. If you're running webinars or you have a Facebook group or like however it is that you've done a discovery call with someone, those are perfect opportunities to use a handwritten note to help improve that sales process because you're building trust underneath, right? Trust of character and communication underneath the actual sales process and how it can help. So I think that's where you can insert this into your business. And that's what I do. So first step is unbranded, right? No branding on the card, right? Just a thank you card, or you can use a personal symbol if you have one. I personally like the magnet for like being magnetic and attraction, that kind of stuff. So you can have a personal symbol. So use unbranded cards. The second thing is using blue ink, which is because it shows authenticity. It's also very well liked, in the industry, so that they know you're not using some service, right? You actually took the time to write the note. The third one is basically finding something to appreciate. So the idea behind the card is to appreciate something about the person. Now, the depth of that depends on the relationship, right? If you've done a discovery call with someone, you certainly can find something to appreciate about them. If it's a little bit more surface level, then you can kind of be a little bit more generic initially, right? Because it's more the thought that counts kind of thing. So that's 3, using appreciation. The fourth one is use the power of positive projection. So in other words, if you know the person well enough, as an example, I'm a very social, outgoing person. I am not, however, all that organized in a lot of ways, right? And to be honest with you, I'm really not all that detail oriented. And although it's something I can improve, and I do want to improve, I don't overly focus on it. I'd rather just, hire someone who is detail oriented, right? So, but if I'm writing a power note, then I'm going to be much more apt to, I want to use the power of positive projection and say, like, if there's a trait in somebody else that is a weakness of mine, I want to highlight the appreciation or the admiration of that trait. So I would say something like, your organizational skills are absolutely unmatched, as an example that would put in there, right? The next one is, and this is the one that really throws people a bit. The idea is to focus on the other person. So we avoid using I, me, or my in the power notes, and instead always are using you or your as much as possible. So when people are putting together, that one kind of, can throw people a little bit. I'll give you a quick example. Instead of saying, hey, Susie, I loved your outfit at the event last night. I love your heart that you shared on the call with me. Instead of that, you just open it by saying, like, Susie, the heart you shared on our call was incredible. It's just a matter, just start the sentence with you and you can reframe that sentence. So people sometimes struggle with that, but it really doesn't take a ton of effort once you kind of get used to it. And then the next one is writing with an upward slope. The most successful people in the world write with an upward slope. It's from the book, The Handwriting Can Change Your Life. Your handwriting can change your life. So you're just writing with a little bit of a slope in your writing, which also actually shows authenticity. And then the last one is the magic, right? You could write all of that and you would make this fantastic. They would appreciate it. They would love it. But the problem is you may not know it. And, the number one reason why relationships die is there isn't a next step. So the magic, what really caught me about this system and the power notes in particular, is the last step, which is using a PS call to action. So if I'm writing a note, I could say, Susie, it was absolutely fantastic seeing you at the event last night. Your willingness to share your love of Michael Jackson together was amazing. If there's anything you need, please feel free to reach out. Thank you, Thommy. P.S. Text me when you get this, and then phone number. You can also use call if you want to go straight to a call. What happens is they text you and say, thank you for the note, right? And then you could say, you're welcome. Hey, I have a couple quick specific questions that only you can answer. Do you have a couple minutes? And now you're going to the phone. And what that does is you get in a permission-driven, what's the number one thing people hate doing, right? Calling, especially when it's calling without quote unquote permission or schedule, right? So this actually gets rid of all that problem too, because you're in a permission-driven phone call. Now it's easy to call them. Can I call you? Got a couple minutes? Yeah, I got a couple minutes. Okay, fantastic. And now you get on the phone, and now you're going to the next step in the relationship. So you're writing a discovery. Let's say you're doing a discovery call. You write the power note, you send it to them. They get it a couple days after the call. P.S. Text me when you get this. They text you, thank you so much for the note. I appreciate it. You're welcome. Do you have a couple minutes? I have a couple more questions. You get them on the phone. Now you have the opportunity to just continue to drive that conversation forward to whatever end it may be. And there's again, 100 strategies. There's a whole host of things you can do on the phone. So I'm just giving you the process, right? But like just that alone, that's just one way to utilize a power note to drive your relationships both towards a sale, and what you're really doing is driving it towards a referral. Because even if she doesn't sign up for coaching, she's going to refer you to people because you went that far for her. So that's why the goal is referrals, not just the sale.
I love the formula. I love how clear the 7 steps are. And I also love one of the things. So I've spoken to over 700 coaches who have signed up with Pensight and are using Pensight to run their coaching sessions and to get referrals. One thing a lot of them struggle with is feeling sleazy with like sales or asking for certain things. But I think clearly when this kind of thing where it's a two-way mutually beneficial relationship rather than just like a one-way demand, then it becomes a lot more fair and just and enjoyable for both parties.
Yeah. Like business moves at the speed of trust, and the foundation of trust is communication. And the way to influence people is communicating through phone calls, one-on-ones, or events, right? That's why, big events make a lot of money. Why? Because it's a high degree of influence and you're getting the event component. And then phone calls, always going to be more impactful than an email or even a Facebook message, because you don't get presence right along the way. You're just, and then obviously one-on-one, getting on a Zoom or what we would call a discovery call, same sort of thing. That's going to be always your highest degree of impact. So when you layer these things, that's the thing, is that you're building the trust in a very congruent way. And that leads to faster. It's all about how fast you can build and do it through the communication. The faster you do that, the faster you end up with A, the sales, and B, the referrals.
Absolutely. And this definitely makes sense and 100% should be a tactic that any beginner coach should be taking up immediately. But of course, when you get to the very big numbers, it's very hard to, write 1,000 handwritten notes per week. How would you recommend, larger coaches, people with larger followings, to stay intentional and purposeful about this kind of stuff when growing and scaling up?
I think the first thing, once you get to scalability, which is perfect, and I think it's a perfect point to mention, like, we have a Facebook group with 7,800 people in it. So we're about to cross 8,000. And we don't do any marketing for that. That's all purely on referral from the book and people inviting people in, kind of thing. And so that is a big part of it. Like, okay, I'm not going to write, 8,000 handwritten notes necessarily. So how do I figure out who to write the notes to and make it scalable? And basically what we do is, the answer really is through events, because you want to communicate with the people who want to be in communication with you. So it might be that, thinking about like event funnels, like maybe you do a mastermind for your group or a mastermind for your community, whether that actually means a Facebook group or just your overall client base, right? So maybe you do the mastermind for that and like 50 people show up. Okay, well, you could do 50 notes to the people that specifically who came. So it kind of gets into like, you have to, at some point, you have to start to create a filter where you're writing the notes to the people that are more engaged with you. It's kind of interesting because we have a tiered system to our business. So we have a subscription, which is kind of the first entry point, right, into working with us. And then we have our group coaching program, and then we have one-on-one. So typically we run like an event to welcome new people. We do a mastermind. And, if we're able to get the address through multiple different methods, we can write a note to the people that come there. But then like once they come into the subscription, handwritten note, like they're going to get a handwritten note welcoming them to the subscription, right? Into the community, right? Same thing when they upgrade to Catalyst, we write the note. So it just becomes part of the process where you just have to learn where does it make the most sense, based on who's actually showing up. Someone signs up for the email list and opts into the Evergreen webinar, you're probably not going to send a handwritten note because they're not in the influential zone with you yet. But the minute that they're on a call with you, they're at a live event with you, or they're in a one-to-one with you at Zoom. That's where you focus your one-on-one efforts. I'm sorry, your power node efforts, for example. It does scale. It's just a matter of, pay more attention to the people who are more engaged.
And rewinding a bit, you answered this question a little bit already, but I'm wondering, a lot of coaches, of course, and I think generally people would consider themselves decent at relationship building. Most people have a friendship group who they're close with. And as you mentioned yourself, you had people that loved you, but you were struggling to get to that final step of getting the referrals. What are the kind of common shortcomings or mistakes that people make regarding this in order to boost their business?
Common mistakes, not communicating. That's the foundation of the book. And what I mean by that is, not proactively communicating at the right levels of what we call the communication pyramid. So, pounding people with emails, as an example. I know it's common, and I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it is a numbers-driven approach to be able to do that. And so I think the mistake in the relationship building is just like, buy. It's just like pounding with that and not really paying attention to the relationship, because it just comes across like you just, looking to do that, rather than being attractive and saying, hey, I'm going to send an email out and I'm going to invite you to come to this free mastermind that we're hosting. And it's like, it's bringing them closer to you instead of pounding outwards, and I think that's a big part, especially in the online space, that gets that, along the way. And then I think, and that really speaks to the true mistake I find repeatedly in all relationship building in any industry, which is focusing on quantity. Part of the hocus pocus trap, as I would say, is it's just more, finding new people, constantly expand the network, right? Add 10 people a day to your database. Start prospecting on Facebook and reach out to 5 people a day who don't know you. No, instead, focus on building 150 people. That's it. 150 people who like, know, trust, and will refer you. And if you do that, you can conquer the world with 150 people. I mean, you can conquer the world with 5. I mean, how many did it take Jesus, right? Like, look how that turned out. I mean, wasn't that just a bunch of people referring at the end of the day? He wasn't out there going, I'm gonna go recruit all these people to my cause. He had a core group that did a lot of it for him along the way. So it's the same concept, right? Focus on the few. And that could mean starting with 3 people. But if those 3 people are really aligned with you and your beliefs and your values, they're going to bring other people who are also aligned. And that creates a combination of things. One is you actually freaking enjoy the people that you're working with and the people you're hanging around, right, along the way. And that creates an effect where you don't have to do the more approach. Instead, you just get to love on the people who are already there, and they bring those people to you. They refer people to you. And because there's such a high degree of trust already, because a referral is a transfer of trust, you have to do a lot less overcoming of objections. I'm terrible at overcoming objections because I don't have to overcome them. That's the truth. Because there's so much trust. All I have to do is ask them what their problem is and show them how I can help them. And it pretty much goes from there. And so I think those are, from a mindset perspective, it's Dunbar's 150. It's focused on building. You can only actively manage 150 relationships at any given time. So focus on quality 150 relationships, and it's sobering. It's one of the things we have us do with our clients. We have them really look at those relationships and look at building that 150 out.
I love the reference to Dunbar's anthropological study of 150 people, 150 friends that any individual can maintain. And then of course, like super close friends, you can only have like 3 to 5 maximum people you really trust in them.
Yeah. And that's part of the story is like, I only had, once I started leaning into this, it was the 3 to 5 thing. It was just a very small but mighty amount. Now that's turned into like, locally anyway, like offline, like probably about 20. That I'm doing an event coming up here real soon, and I'm only inviting my top referral sources who also happen to be really awesome, generous, appreciative, amazing, positive entrepreneurs along the way, and influential, and just great people then putting in the room together. And then it builds from there.
Yeah, awesome. And one thing you mentioned to me previously was that a lot of the people in your tribe are realtors as well as coaches. I'm curious, what are the commonalities you see and the differences in terms of applying the strategies and tactics for people in real estate versus people in coaching? How do they compare? What stays the same?
So that's the interesting thing, right? So if people are listening and you get the book is a story that follows a real estate agent. And the author, right, Michael J. Mayer, was, is America's most referred real estate agent. And so naturally, most of the tribe are realtors. But what's interesting is when you really look at the tactics and the strategies, there's really none of them actually that are realtor specific. The biggest difference, however, between coaches implementing and realtors implementing is that at the end of the day, it is not difficult to understand what a realtor does. Are you looking to buy, sell, or invest? I can help you. Simple, okay? Coaches, and coaches really fall into holistically into service-based businesses. So I would say financial planners, insurance agents, coaches, trainers, speakers, they all fall into the same category. And so our differentiation is that we may have to do more work to be able to clearly communicate how to refer us, because we oftentimes have many different ways that we can help people. And it takes time in developing your IP to really get that clear. And I think that's been the biggest, when I found 7L, I initially was actually a healthcare broker. So I was doing healthcare for employees of businesses. And when the pandemic hit, I jumped into 100% coaching again and was like, okay, I think I figured this out. And I had to rebuild communicating how to refer me. And so on the one hand, it's going to take more work, but here's the thing. On the other hand, it also will actually make your online marketing far more effective, because if people don't know how to refer you, they're not going to buy from you. And that's a really important thing. It creates so much clarity when you can know the one thing that you put out a consistent message, this is how to refer me, or this is how I help people. And then only your close people really understand all the other components. And that's part of the process. So the mistake people make, coaches in particular, like you go to a physical networking event and it's like, yeah, I can help anyone with anxiety. Like that's not specific. And that's hard for me to refer, right? But if you get more specific around that, now that anxiety coach may also be able to help with a number of other things underneath, but they have to put one message out to the marketplace. And then the inner circle can learn the rest, right? And then, so that's where you really create those people that are willing to listen for all the components of your coaching program. So as an example, when I was going through this process, I sat down with one of my ambassadors and I showed every session that I do, because I have a curriculum for my one-on-one sessions. I showed him every single session, the outcome. So I literally said, I can help with this and this and this and this and this. But the core message is this, right? It's referrals. But underneath it, I'm helping people with time management, energy management, clarity about their life, how to build influence, all these other things that are underneath that one core message. And I think that's the main difference between coaches or any service-based business and realtors, is that it will take a bit more to clearly identify how they can refer you, right, along the way. But it's worth that process. It's worth it because it's double serving. It not only does it get you more referrals, but it'll also make your marketing a lot cleaner.
Yeah, absolutely. The focus and having a clear niche, a clear niche, if you like, really makes a difference in terms of making it easy to have a clear message, and that the clarity of the message makes a massive difference in terms of letting people understand and take it in, but also then spread that message to other people. Yeah. Completely on board with that.
Yeah.
Awesome. And now for something slightly different. So we're introducing a fun little round, a rapid fire 5 round for Pensight, the Coach Tribe podcast. I'm going to ask you 5 questions and I want your answers as quickly as possible.
Oh boy.
No need to overthink.
He didn't tell me about this beforehand. So all right. Okay.
There was no warning.
No warning. I just want you all to know it's totally authentic. I did not think through it. So we'll see where this goes. Okay.
Here it goes. Yeah. Question number 1. If anything, what would you change if you could start your journey again?
I would have gone 100% on personal development first.
Nice.
Self-mastery.
Question number 2. What's one belief that you've changed recently?
I believe that I've changed recently. Actually, I had been, although I'm vice president of coaching, I've been putting a lot of energy and effort into my training skills. And I felt like that was my direction, and for a lot of different reasons. And the belief that I changed recently was like just a belief of like I'm not a good enough coach, believe it or not. We always have those internal struggles at the end. I mean, imagine being given the keys to such an amazing IP and an amazing opportunity. The crap that comes up in your head never stops, but you have to just break through it. And so I really shifted that belief and realized that being a better coach will make me a more effective trainer. I thought it was kind of the other way around, or I thought that my path to the next, I had kind of plateaued in a number of ways. And I thought my next level was through increasing my training skills, but I've realized that it's actually through increasing my coaching skills. And so I'm challenging myself to do more live coaching in group form instead of just in one-to-one sessions. So that's what I've changed.
Fascinating. I just see imposter syndrome everywhere. It's crazy how many people.
Yeah, right. It definitely comes up when you're, at some point it comes up in all of us. And I went through that early on in the journey when I came on board. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Question number 3, who are you most grateful for? Who or what are you most grateful for?
The easiest, the first answer was Michael, right? Michael J. Mayer, the guy. There are so many gurus online. Michael is by far the most authentic. When he says he's the most generous person you'll meet, that's true. You may have to earn that generosity, but it really is true. I have had the blessing of working with him both behind the scenes, obviously now for a year and a half. And he is the exact same person on the screen on a Zoom internally as he is on stage. And he is just an incredible mentor. And he saw something in me that other people who could have given opportunity didn't recognize. And for that, no matter where my life ends up, Michael has permanently created a stamp on my life and will always be a part of it. So that was the first thing that popped in my head. It may sound like a little bit of brown nosing, but it honestly was the first thing that popped in my head.
I love that. Very wholesome. Question number 4. I think I already know the answer to this, but what's one book everybody should read?
Yeah, 7L. Without question, right? The 7 levels of communication. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've said, people are like, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. I'm like, read the book. My husband even jokes. Every time I bring somebody up that has a problem, he's like, did they read the book? So it becomes a thing. Yes, must read 7L.
7 levels of communication.
Yeah, good.
And final question 5. One message that you can have on a billboard for most people to see, what would that message be?
If you want success, attract, inspire, and grow a community of generous givers and appreciative receivers by being a generous giver and appreciative receiver.
Incredible. I love it. Thank you so much, Thommy. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Until we speak again. And yeah, of course, people can catch you on Pensight, of course, pensight.com/x/Thommy Sandvick. Anywhere else people can find you and listen to you and get more of you.
Feel free to reach out, friend request. The Thommy with an H thing makes it pretty easy for me to find. So if you just search Thommy, Thommy, you'll find me. And then join the Generosity Generation, right? I'm obviously in there. That's our Facebook group. The website is joingengen.com. And you'll find me there. I'm admin there and obviously doing things there. So always happy to connect.
Well, thank you so much, Thommy. Again, go join that. Read 7Ls. Absolutely
yes,
necessary reading. Compulsory reading.
Yeah.
You can find more as well with Thommy on Facebook, on Pensight. And thank you again for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed this session and look forward to catching you soon. Cheers. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be releasing new ones every Wednesday. Make sure to subscribe and rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast platform to give other people the chance to discover us too.